What would you do if the HOA president knocked like she owned your front step, demanded the key to your private gate, and promised things would get uncomfortable if you said no? My name is Marcus Hale. I'm a software consultant who moved to Pine Hollow, Wisconsin, for one reason that looked small in the listing photos, but felt big in my bones: a simple iron gate at the edge of a narrow lawn that opens to Willow Bay Lake, a boundary I could touch, a quiet I could keep. The first week I was here, I replaced the little brass lock myself, clicked it shut, and told myself out loud, like a fool on a good day, this is mine. The morning she arrived, the glass in the door rattled from the knock, sharp, impatient, like it wanted to set the tone before any words did. I opened up with a coffee mug in my hand, and there she was, blazer-pressed blonde bob. Cut clean, a name that sounded like a title when she said it. Celeste Morton, president of the Ridgeview Lakeside Association. We'll need a copy of your back gate key by today. Fastest route to the Lake Board members, and residents need access. It's only fair. I blinked, tasted the coffee cooling in my mouth, set the mug down so my hands could be as steady as my voice. With all respect, ma'am, that gate sits on my deed. It's not a common path. She gave me that polite smile that isn't polite at all. This neighborhood runs on cooperation. Don't be the neighbor who starts off wrong. The water flashed through the trees like it was listening. I kept my tone even and said I won't be handing out my key. And for a second, the porch held its breath while she measured me. Then she nodded like a judge postponing a sentence and said, "You may not like where that leads." Then those heels tapped down my walk like punctuation, and I exhaled against the door, hearing my mother in my head, the way you hear your own heartbeat. When it's quiet enough, stand firm on what's yours, baby. People will draw your lines for you if you don't. You know what I mean? Word moves in a cul-de-sac faster than a lawnmower by sunset. I could feel it. The glances sliding toward my fence, the jogger slowing at the lock, the quick wave that is really a retreat. 2 evenings later, Celeste came back with a slim folder hugged to her chest, like proof. "I assume you've reconsidered," she said. "Bylaws grant the association control over access points to shared amenities." "You're calling my gate a shared amenity?" I asked, and she said she was calling it the shortest path to the water, which was honest, in the way a pickpocket is honest about being fast. "My survey calls it part of my yard," I said, and I watched a flicker cross her eyes, the one people have when they were betting you hadn't read the paperwork. Property law isn't a technicality. Folks only use that word when the rule isn't on their side. She swallowed whatever she wanted to say and told me the board would discuss consequences. Like the weather forecast was fines with a chance of shame. And when the door shut, I pulled out the closing packet and traced the lines with my finger fence gate water's edge. All right where the title company said they were. I didn't move here to fight. I wanted to grill chicken on Sundays and lose to myself at chess on the deck. But there's a brand of politeness that hides a fist. You learn to recognize it when you've been the only black man at too many offsites. It shows up smiling and says we all want harmony, right? And harmony is beautiful. It just isn't ownership. That weekend, the delegation arrived 3 silhouettes at the end of my driveway, arranged like an answer key. Celeste in front, a tall guy with salt and pepper hair, clutching a clipboard like a church fan, and a petite woman with a leather notebook already open. "Hale, we'd like to resolve this," the man said. "I'm Greg Tully, treasurer. This is Linda Voss, secretary. Please confirm for the record. that you've refused to provide a copy of your gate key. I laughed once, the kind of laugh that sounds like disbelief, clearing its throat for the record. I said the gate is private. You don't get to recategorize it by committee. The smile on Celeste's face thinned to nearly nothing. The board may impose fines for non-cooperation, she said. I asked for the line where they could take a key to something the association didn't own. Greg looked at his clipboard, like courage might be printed on the back. Linda's pen moved anyway, because anger looks official when you put it in ink. Careful with your words, Celeste said softly, puffed. Can be the sharpest we are. The governing body here, and I told her governing doesn't mean trespassing. You don't get to walk people through my yard because it's convenient. She leaned closer and dropped her voice in that place where microphones and manners both go quiet. You're new, everyone else understands how we do things. Don't be the outsider who never belongs. And I smiled, small and tired. I didn't buy this house to belong to you. They noted my refusal, like it was a trophy. Walked away, and I stood there with a shop rag in my hand and white knuckles trying not to let the old feeling rise, the one that says, keep your head down, and they'll leave you alone, accept control. Doesn't leave when it's hungry, it gets inventive. The social squeeze came in low tide waves that had once been warmth, now barely nods. A conversation would stop, mid-sentence, as I walked by. Kids pedaled faster. When a parent called, not loud, just clear. Play along, or be the reason everyone is uncomfortable. That night I called my sister Sierra in Chicago, told her the knock, the folder, the delegation, the threats dressed up as neighborly favors, and I heard her knife thumping the cutting board. As she listened, then she said, what older sisters say when their patience is shorter than yours. Call the non-emergency number documented. You're not crazy, but you'll need more than your memory when they pretend this was just a friendly chat. It wasn't fireworks, but it was the grown move Pine Hollow PD took the report, told me to call, if it escalated, and 3 days later it escalated on letterhead, taped to my door, effective immediately. $100 per day for failure to comply with directives regarding community lake access, plus a line about notifying my mortgage lender. And I laughed. Not joyful, just, you've got to be kidding. You ever hold paper that dares you to react big so it can call you the problem? I set it on the counter, took a breath, called the police again, then I waited for the next knock. It came with a fourth person. A tall woman in her 60s with a silver bun and eyes like cold water. I'm Elliot Crane, longest-serving board member, she said, like a resume. And Celeste announced, final warning. Hand over the key or the fines. Continue, and the lender gets notified. I held up my phone. Not dramatic, just clear. You were told to leave this alone. I've logged the pattern. Either you walk off my porch, or you hear a patrol car door shut in 5 minutes. And Celeste laughed small and hard. You think they'll take your side against the entire HOA? And I said, I think they'll take the side of the law, and pressed call. Tires crunched the gravel, a sound I didn't know could feel like relief. 2 officers stepped out calm, as Sunday morning. Officer Dan Rivas, with soft eyes that miss nothing, and Officer Maya Ortiz, who looked like she had a zero-tolerance policy for nonsense. I introduced myself. I'm the homeowner. They're demanding a key to my private gate. Celeste jumped in. We're the governing board. He's obstructing community access. And Officer Rivas held up a hand. Is the gate on your recorded property, Shem? I said, listed on my survey. The public path is 5 houses down, and Officer Ortiz turned to Celeste and said, "Unless the gate is a recorded common area or easement, you don't have authority to demand keys or access, continuing to show up after being told not to." Edges into harassment. I could feel the neighborhood watching from driveways. A kid rolled a skateboard back and forth. A dog barked like it wanted to call order, and Celeste said, "You're siding with him," and Rivas shook his head. "We're siding with the law. If you have a civil claim, take it to civil court. Don't make this man's front step." "Your meeting room," Ortiz added. "I suggest you leave now." And it wasn't a movie ending. No fireworks. Just a balloon. Slowly losing air. Shoulders. Dropping notebook. Closing a face that finally realized consequences were real. They left, and a neighbor down the street gave me a small thumbs up, like we were both in middle school and didn't want detention. That happened. The fallout arrived in changed pronouns. It wasn't Marcus is causing drama. It was she really did that. Ronald and Kay, the older couple from the corner, stopped to apologize for staying quiet. She has a way of making life hard. If you disagree. Easier to say nothing. They said easier for you. I answered, not cruel, just honest, and Kay nodded, because truth has a weight politeness can't carry forever. Celeste didn't retire from the fight. She doubled the newsletter cadence, certain homeowners unwilling to cooperate. Obstacles to community harmony. I became a cautionary tale in a bullet list. And the funny thing about coded language is people can read it as some went colder. Most started to shift because a truth cracked open in public is hard to reseal in private. The board meeting looked like a town hall about a dragon folding chairs. Wall to wall, I sat in the back in a clean hoodie, like I'd wandered into the wrong event. Budget, landscaping, snow parking, and then new business. My name said, like a problem. The room had to solve. I raised my hand and didn't wait for a call before you label me. Let's say the quiet part. Loud, you showed up at my door demanding a key to private property. You threatened fines in my mortgage. The police told you to stop. This isn't about harmony. It's about control. And it wasn't a speech. Just facts, said Steady. But people heard courage inside it. And stood up, Sandra said. He's right. Ronald said, a lot of us have felt bullied. We just didn't want smoke. A couple I didn't know said if it isn't common property, leave the man alone. Greg stared at his clipboard, like the answer might be on the underside. Linda looked at Celeste, and then Elliot lifted her mic and turned the room with one clean sentence. I reviewed the recorded documents. There is no easement through Mr. Hale. Mr. Hale's yard, the gate is not a common access point. I won't support penalties. The gavel hit the table, hard at order. Celeste said. But the room didn't want order. It wanted accountability. Greg surprised himself and said, maybe leadership needs to change. Someone called for a recall vote. It moved like electricity. Seconded, scheduled, announced. And by the time the vote rolled around, Celeste resigned. The lake looked like itself again. Kids threw a football in the cul-de-sac without glancing at my porch. Folks smiled on their walks, and one evening, I stood at my gate. Hand on the iron, listened to the water like it was telling me something older than both of us. Sierra called and asked, "Are you happy?" And I said, "I'm peaceful, happy is loud. Peace is quiet." People ask if I think Celeste is evil. I don't. I think she's used to doors opening when she knocks. A lot of us grow up believing our comfort is the common good. It isn't. Silence makes bullies brave, and saying no out loud hands other people a yes they didn't know they had. So let's argue, was I right to call the police on a neighborhood dispute, or did I escalate by refusing to play nice? Do HOAs keep a community livable or give petty people a badge? And if I weren't a black man in a mostly white lakeside association, do you think the story ends the same way? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me what you've lived, what you think the law should be, and what decency should look like when the two don't match. And if you've ever drawn a line everyone told you was inconvenient, say it out loud and hit subscribe. Because sometimes the fastest path to the water isn't through someone else's gate. It's the long way around with your dignity intact.